Hello and welcome to Midweek Matters. I know two boys, Bhaskar and Kishore. Bhaskar is 12 years old and Kishore is 10. They have just completed their 6th and 4th standards and are going into 7th and 5th. I know them well because their parents work in our house. Their father is not literate. Mother is just about. Like 90% of children worldwide, they are also out of school. They are 2 of the 33 crore children of our country who face serious disruption to their schooling. Observing their schooling as well as the lack of it prompted me to look at the larger picture of what is happening with our children across the country. Today I want to share with you what I found and speak about the direct and indirect impact of COVID-19 on our children. The much talked about remote learning, online classes, digital education are very unreal in the case of Bhaskar and Kishore. Although they are in a so-called private school, Bhaskar and Kishore have just an hour of instruction each per day. Never on all working days of a week. Only one teacher handles both their classes and all subjects. Unlike the regular physical classes, occasionally another teacher makes an appearance. Rest of the teachers are probably on furlough. It is not a surprise that most private schools have not retained their teachers during the lockdown. Both teachers and pupils are uncomfortable with this remote teaching and learning. The boys tell me that attendance is poor. These boys have no problem with access to internet because they live on our premises. But most of their peers have difficulty in net access. They have little help from their parents. UNICEF reports that out of the 33 crore children who are not able to attend schools due to lockdowns, only 3.5 crore children are able to access education through online classes or radio programs. Save the Children survey showed that overall, 62 out of every 100 children in the surveyed households discontinued their schooling. 67 in the rural areas and 55 in urban areas. According to UNESCO, a large proportion of them may not return to school at all. Even before the pandemic, there are already nearly 3.5 crore children who are anyway out of the school. That's what the 75th round of Household Survey 2017-18 by NSS says. NSO 2019 report says, among children aged between 6 and 17 who are out of school, 31 in every 100 have never been to school. Reports from West Bengal show that there is a huge 105% rise in child labor in the state during the lockdown. Other states may not be far behind. Even before the pandemic, malnourishment of children in our country is among the highest in the world. Global Nutrition Report 2020 shows that in India, the national prevalence of under 5 years stunting is 38%. This is much higher than the developing country average of 25%. And under 5 years wasting prevalence of 21% in our country is also greater than the developing country average of 9%. Pandemic is sure to make matters worse for nutrition of our children. A study by the International Food Policy Research Institute shows that of all the states and union territories, only 16 have taken steps to adapt the midday meal scheme to the changed circumstances. Save the Children reported that nearly 4 in every 10 households did not receive midday meal or anything in lieu of that. Midday meal portal of the Government of India tells us that on the eve of the lockdown, nearly 11.5 crore children are registered for the scheme throughout the country. There is a high risk that a significant number of them will go to swell the ranks of the already large number of malnourished in the coming years. Lockdown moved schooling to digital platforms. I briefly told you about the experience of Bhaskar and Kishore. They don't have a problem with access to net as they live on our premises. I have also helped them with a smartphone. They also do not have any problem with power supply. But that's not the case with a large number of their cohorts across the country. The National Sample Survey Report on Education 2017-18 says that only 24% of the households have internet connectivity. Situation might have improved marginally between 2017-18 and 2019-20, but no radical improvement could have been possible between 2018 and 2020. Just a little over 15% of rural households have access to internet services, and it is about 42% for urban households. But mind you, a large percentage of our children are from rural households. The households that have both a computer and an internet connection are abysmally small, just 8%. Digital divide is not just between rural and urban. Access to internet greatly varies between genders, regions, economic classes. You can find the link to the NSO report in the notes in the description section. Digital divide among genders is appalling. Only 33 of every 100 women have access to internet, while 67 men have. The divide gets nastier in rural areas. The percentage of women who have internet access is only 28% in our villages. We do not have data specifically for boys and girls, but I won't be surprised if the access is more or less on the same lines. Unlikely to be much different. Access to a computer is just 4.6% in Bihar. Kerala reports 24% and Delhi 35%. Internet access is also very uneven and unequal. While states like Delhi, Kerala, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Haryana and Uttarakhand report 40% access, in states like Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, West Bengal, Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh, it is only 20% or less. Economic status is another basis for digital divide. Only 2.7% have access to a computer in the poorest 20% households, and only 9% have access to internet facilities. Of the top 20% households, about 28 have computers and just about 50% have internet access for every 100. There is a spike in smartphone availability. Annual Status of Education Report, ASER for short, says in its 2020 report that about 11% households bought new phones since the lockdown began, 80% of which are smartphones. Of those who had no smartphone at home, only 13% had access to someone else's device. But without the large screen of a desktop or at least a tablet, imagine the difficulties of children to access online classes on the tiny screen of a smartphone. Even if there is a computer and an internet connection, power supply remains a challenge. Although almost every village in the country is now connected to the power grid, supply in many regions continues to be a problem. Only about 47 of every 100 households have 12 hours of power supply. Even when there is access to internet, in most places, especially in rural areas, connectivity is poor. About 50% people complain of poor connectivity or bad signal. This makes the digital experience very frustrating and makes the learning experience for children discouraging. Add to this the noisy environment in the household. Not every child has a quiet and undisturbed place to concentrate on an online lesson. About 37% of households in the country have just one dwelling room. And during the lockdown, every member of the household is at home. Not the best environment for study. Bhaskar and Kishore tell me that they never had any experience of online learning before. And it is true for most of their peers across the country. Not only children, teachers too were unprepared, untrained, and therefore unskilled to conduct online classes. Only 17% of government teachers and 43% of private school teachers are reported to have received any training in online teaching. That impacts their teaching ability and consequently the students' learning levels. The Economist reported recently that even in countries like the United States, UK, Belgium, the Netherlands, digital classes are a disappointment. By March 2021, primary school students in the UK have fallen behind by 3 months. Belgium reported a similar situation. Dutch students who were measured during 8 weeks of online classes revealed that they learnt nothing new at all in their classes. If that is the situation in countries where digital exposure and net penetration is far higher, it is frightening to think of the learning outcomes for our children. Even before the pandemic, the learning levels of our children are very unsatisfactory. Acer tells us that in 2018, about 73% of Class 3 pupils could not read Class 2 textbook, and only 73% of Class 8 students could read Class 2 texts. The numbers for arithmetic are equally distressing. In 2018, about 72% of Class 3 children could not do subtraction. About 73% of Class 5 children are unable to do division. About 66% of Class 8 students are unable to do 3-digit by 1-digit division. I have given the link to Acer report in the notes below. If those were the learning levels before the pandemic, we can imagine what the lockdown, staying away from school, and patchy quality of online digital classes could have done to our children's academic standards. On top of these learning difficulties, children are facing mental health issues. They are confined to homes. Their social interactions are limited, affecting their emotional development. The research journal Indian Pediatrics noted that the situation will induce acute panic, anxiety, obsessive behaviors, paranoia, and depression, and may also lead to post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, in the long run. I have given links to the issues of Indian Pediatrics and International Journal of Social Psychiatry that carried these studies. Take a look at them. In a study done by a think tank, Health Parliament, 28% students reported disturbed sleep and 26% said they had lost interest in performing tasks. About 20% said they lost motivation to study, and 15% reported loss of concentration. Another 15% experienced stress, and about 14% reported mood swings. Students are reporting weight gain and excess strain due to an increased screen time. Many helpline organizers said, when I spoke to them a few weeks ago, that there is an increase in calls regarding domestic violence and child abuse. Underprivileged children also have to contend with the stress of seeing their parents' economic distress. I have also given links to the Lancet article on mental health effects of school closures during COVID-19 and Save the children's observations. Look at them when you have time. ACER Report 2020 shows that there is a marginal but noticeable shift of enrollment from private schools to government schools. It could be because of the financial stress that families are experiencing. Another finding of the report is very worrying. There is a huge increase in non-enrollment of students. In the band of 5 to 8-year-olds, there is a huge jump of 6.8% in 2020 of 5-year-olds not enrolling over the 2018 figure. It has to be verified if this is only because of school shutdowns. If it is on account of financial distress which pushed a significant segment of our middle class into poverty, then it is indeed a cause for worry. Those children may not return to school anytime soon. Pardon me if I have bombarded you with too much of data, but I thought it was necessary that we come face to face with the situation of our children. Let's not wish these stark realities away. We need to think about them. We have to care for their education and mental well-being. They can't look after themselves. It is we who need to worry about them, plan for them, and act for them. Only if we have clear assessment of the ground realities and are aware of the issues, can we think of meaningful ways to take corrective action. It is an extraordinary situation. The governments, both union and state, will have to urgently apply their minds and put together task forces to deal with the challenges. Otherwise, a whole generation is at risk of losing the opportunity to realize its potential. A large number of underprivileged children might go away forever from education and fall into child labor. Girls are at much worse risk of being confined to households, doing chores, and even worse, child marriage. Business as usual governance will not be able to reach these children and rescue them. The danger is we will have minds ill-equipped to build a $5 trillion economy, less skilled hands to reach our goal of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Malnourished, stunted, poorly educated, unskilled, digitally deprived, mentally scarred, distressed, and unsmiling children cannot make our country a superpower. A putative Vishwaguru should teach its children well, feed them well, and keep them safe and happy. That's all for this week. Thanks for your attention. We'll be back again next week, Wednesday, lunchtime at 1 o'clock. Stay safe, take good care of yourselves and all your dear ones. Until then, bye.